Part 11 requirements for validation of computerized systems used to create, modify, maintain, transmit records. Now, could CSA lean validation? And again, starting 2023, I'm going to call it lean validation, right? We're switching a little bit here. Cause manufacturers to be cited for not following regulations. And this question seems to be coming up a lot, right? And I know, Cisco, you've answered that in the past, but I really want you to focus the response on from a 21 CFR Part 11, right? The requirements, I'm hearing myself talking here, it's okay. 21 CFR Part 11 requirement is, is the issue here. Do I need to test everything? Do I need to script test everything? So again, we'll go with the roundabout with Cisco, Daniel, and Joanne.
Yeah, so let's start even with that concept of lean validation, right? The intent for this, and I think it's always been an agency intent, is that you should be using and optimizing your validation activities, right? They should be lean, they should be value added. What we tried to do here is make sure that it was clear. Here's an approach that you could use to say how you got through that and what kind of things you need to be able to explain, right? The risk, the decision making that went behind that, why that that testing was sufficient. What was the end result? When we talk about that from a Part 11 standpoint, one of the things that we're not intending to do here is to say, this is the only approach you must do. And I want people always to remember, it's guidance, it's not regulation, right? The regulation has its baseline. It requires you to look at certain things, and then guidance does provide, agency thinking or clarification, or in this case, an approach that meets those requirements. So when you're thinking about that application to the Part 11 piece, right, one of the things that goes all the way back to identifying that intended use is think through early on, and I think Joanne mentioned beforehand, put the thinking early ahead of time. Is anything that you are using that system for going to be potentially a Part 11 record? And if so, just make sure, you can create it, you can modify, you've got the controls around it. That's just stuff that is part and parcel of, I think, a good validation activity. It doesn't matter if it is leveraging ad hoc testing that's using other experiential testing or other unscripted testing methodologies, or if you're using a script because that's easier for you as an organization. All that matters is that you thought about that requirement and you found out a way to make sure that that requirement was fulfilled. And it should be very straightforward.
Thank you, Cisco. Daniel, I just want to remind you of the conversation you and I and Joanne had, right? Digital transformation, technology has changed. So I just want to place that little bug in your ear here.
That's right. I think that it's important to remember, and you put up on one of the intro slides, that Part 11 was written in 1997. So let's think about computer systems from 1997. There were no apps, there were no phones, there was no digital connectivity. It was usually limited. There would be servers, but it was limited in scope. A lot of it was done on older systems and could easily be end-arounded or hacked. And the point of this was to not require signatures. It was to, in concept, protect data integrity. It was an attempt to make sure that when the agency was looking for data regarding whether it was a pharmaceutical or a device or how it was manufactured, whatnot, that data was maintained in a structure and a state that could be appropriately assessed, not by the agency, but by the company, by the people who owned it, so that they can make common sense decisions on whether or not to take further action. Yeah, that was 1997. I think every single person in this room, even some of you weren't even born in 1997. It may actually have been to look at the things here and say, look, things have really radically evolved. Now, going to the question here, what's the fear of citation? The citation that's coming around is, do you have enough are you being cited for not following the regulations? Well, how would you not follow? Think about it in a classical bring me a rock sense. I think that's what most people are afraid of. You have an investigator in front of you saying, show me your proof, and that whatever you bring isn't going to be good enough. Like, here's my rock. That's not the right rock. Oh, okay. That's fair, except that the guidance that's laid out here, plus the regulations to some degree, do give you the boundaries about what the size of the rock, the color of the rock, and the things that it should be. It is a purpose to say have a ability to put your rocks in certain places so that you can go to a place and find the exact rock, or at least a rock that you believe is the best for the fit. And now, let's say the investigator is not confused about it. They should be able to ask you questions not about the rock. If they do, then it's not about part 11. It's not about the system. It's about that drill down. If it's more about your rock selecting characteristics, again, is that part 11? That's more about your risk-based approach. So putting the risk basis up at the front and making sure that's solid, not only is that good for this application, it's good for all applications that you're running. That's going to be something that applies not just for computer software, it's going to apply for incoming acceptance, it's going to apply for quality assurance, it's going to apply for everything. Even design considerations, marketing considerations, all of them are going to apply. So being able to fall back on a solid risk-based foundation, risk management foundation, being able to look forward and say, if we can explain these things, then our problem isn't here. And so part 11 is, again, it's mostly just it's a boundary condition, not a gotcha condition.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Daniel. Joanne?
Yeah, so for me, I think that traditionally manufacturers tested and provided test evidence or attested to the fact that the regulation had been met with their systems. I think what the lean validation, what the guidance helps us with is, in addition to that, it gives us the opportunity to point to other activities that were done. What did the vendor of the software do? What do we know? It doesn't change the fact that the systems must meet those requirements, but the proof doesn't just have to be our own test evidence. And the regulation never said we had to do all of our own testing, but it is the habit that many of us were in. So I think that it's not that CSA is going to cause us to be cited. I think it gives us that opportunity to explain more fully what else we're doing.
Awesome.